Welcome to Shadow of Truth with your host, Rory Hall from thedailycoin.org and Dave Kranzler from investmentresearchdynamics.com. And today is Friday, September the 16th, 2016. And this is our late Thursday market update for this week. Thank you all for being here. You ever heard of a place called Kerala?
Who?
Kerala, Kerala, India.
No.
They're responsible, this community is responsible for 20 to 25% of all the imported gold into the country of India.
Officially imported, right?
Yep.
Yeah. The more relevant number now is what's smuggled, and we don't know.
Well, I'm just saying that's a significant amount of gold to be going into basically a community the size of an American county. Yeah,
there's probably some tariff or tax reason, be my guess.
Well, they're on the coast. They're on the very southern tip.
That's a big part of it then.
Yeah, and they've been part of the old Silk Road, and they're going to be part of the new Silk Road, not only on the outbound but the inbound route of the New Silk Road.
It's not going to be a small town for long.
It's not as well. I mean, it's a pretty good sized place, but I mean, in comparison to the rest of the world, I mean, they're importing, somewhere between 225 and 250 tons of gold a year. That's a lot of gold.
See the numbers that are going into Shanghai and Beijing.
Yeah,
those we'll never see.
Well, I mean, but if you, just think about that. I mean, that's a huge amount of gold.
It's almost 10% of the global annual production.
Exactly. And that's just in one location in India. So, I mean, my God, that's...
we know between India and China, the two countries import close to the global annual production.
Always leads me back to where is it coming from? Where's the gold coming from?
It's coming from the vaults sitting in central banks and bank custodial accounts in Western Europe and the United States. That's where the gold's coming from. And it's also coming from the countries that the U.S. goes into and extorts the gold out of them, like Goldman did with Venezuela.
Yep.
Those places. That's where it's coming from.
140 tons or whatever that they stole out of Libya, and the 130 they stole in Ukraine, and criminal dirtbags.
But yeah, I mean, it's if you're like a wealthy guy and you've got $5 million worth of bullion bars stored at J.P. Morgan's custodial vault in London or New York City, if you don't go and ask for delivery of it now, you're an idiot. You're never going to see it because that gold has probably been hypothecated 10 times over.
You think that little?
I'm just throwing that number out. We know it's been, hypothecated several times.
Yes.
The J.P. Morgan vault lends it to the J.P. Morgan vault in London, and then the J.P. Morgan vault in London lends it to HSBC, and then HSBC claims that it gets delivered into GLD. And then HSBC ships it to a refinery in Switzerland, and where it gets refined down into kilo bars and shipped into China through Beijing or Shanghai.
Or through India smuggling, because HSBC is helping the smugglers in India.
Right. Oh, absolutely. UBS and HSBC are the primary banks helping the smugglers in India, and they may be smuggling it themselves. Who knows?
They may be. Maybe smuggling it into the CEO and president's vaults.
Yeah, I've had that email exchange with John Brimlow before, because he's the one who sources all the data I get on China and India. And he's usually pretty demure about making accusations or starting conspiracy theories, but he agreed with me that HSBC and UBS are probably involved in the smuggling. Yeah, so really quickly here, it looks like the Deutsche Bank news was released yesterday, and so the stock might have jumped up a bit, but of course all the markets went crazy yesterday. Deutsche Bank is that even though everyone knows it's a problem, that may well be this round's version of Lehman, because we knew Lehman was going to collapse way before it collapsed, and they started unloading employees in the spring that year, because I have one of my best friends worked there, and he got let go in like April that year. So we knew Lehman was going to go. It was just a matter of time. And so Deutsche, and so they ascribed the ultimate '08 collapse to the Lehman situation. I still think it was Goldman and AIG, but we know Deutsche Bank's going to collapse. It's just a question of when. Exactly. And you start to see news like this, and I was starting to think Deutsche Bank was protected by the Bundesbank and the Fed, but if they're going to go after them for $14 billion, maybe they're not protected, and that I don't know. I don't see how Deutsche Bank survives.
Yeah, they could just be being set up as the fall guy for this coming collapse.
The way Lehman and Bear were, yeah,
exactly, same thing. And speaking of letting employees go, Wells Fargo letting go, well over 5,000 employees after Wells Fargo was found to have committed how many? 2 million individual acts of fraud. Has the mainstream media used that word? No, they have not. They have stayed away from it. But Gretchen Van Susteren, the young lady that walked out on Fox News about 2 weeks ago.
I know who she is.
And she released a video on Facebook. It's about a minute and a half video. Last time I checked it, it had over 2 million views on it, and she is going off on that situation. And she uses the word fraud. She's not afraid to use that word.
Right, but see, that's because Wells Fargo is the majority owner. I mean, I don't know what percent he owns, but the guy with the highest percentage ownership is Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett is sacred. You can't come out in the mainstream media and say anything bad about Warren Buffett. I honestly think the dude's got to be going senile, because he's been dead stone silent on this whole thing. And I can guarantee you that there's so much more fraud going on at Wells Fargo, all of the banks for that matter. But what really irked me about that situation is the woman who oversaw that area where all those fraudulent checking accounts were created. She was given $120 million parting bonus.
Yeah.
And that's not a bonus. That is absolutely hush money. Because when she gets subpoenaed in front of Congress, which she probably won't, because she's Warren Buffett's child and he's sacred, but if she gets subpoenaed in civil lawsuits, because there's lawyers out there that don't give a crap about Buffett. If I was a lawyer, I'd start enlisting people for a class action suit, and I'd sue her personally.
Yes.
But when she gets subpoenaed, she's going to take the fifth. That was hush money. That's how the mob operates. That's how a criminal racket works. I mean, we're talking about RICO charges here. When Drexel went down, they filed RICO charges against Drexel, and those are among the worst types of criminal felony charges that are non-murder that can be filed against you.
Yeah, and speaking of murder, that's how they were able to capture Al Capone. They couldn't get him on murder charges, so they used RICO, and that's how they were able to get him.
Tax evasion.
Exactly.
Right. Well, no one's ever going to go after Buffett, and that guy is as corrupt as the day is long. I guarantee it. And I guarantee you Wells Fargo is a dirty bank.
Oh
One of my short seller journals emailed me yesterday and asked me if I thought Wells Fargo was a good short here. And I said, I had the same thought, but I probably wouldn't touch it just because it's Warren Buffett. And that's the type of fraud that'll stand until the whole system collapses.
And it's a sad statement that you just made. That is because it's more than likely true. I mean, they are a too big to jail bank. Eric Holder's Department of Justice gave them a blanket get out of free jail card. We cannot go after them. We cannot prosecute. They can do whatever they want. Doesn't matter. And Loretta Lynch has marched in lockstep with all of the policies that he put into place, which is why we're not seeing any prosecution against Hillary Clinton, which is why we're not seeing anything being said by the Department of Justice about this situation with Wells Fargo. I mean, where is Loretta Lynch? Where is the Department of Justice? Where are they at? They're nowhere to be seen.
Well, when you read these stories about Obama out golfing, or on Martha's Vineyard or in Hawaii, who do you think's sitting in the chair at the Oval Office? It's Warren Buffett. And and Loretta Lynch is protected because she's willing to hide everything for these criminals. I mean, she's the one who should be going after the Clinton Foundation, and she's not.
Exactly. Well, did you see there was a short clip that I saw? It was like 49 seconds of the of Congress issuing a subpoena to the FBI for the emails, the unredacted emails from the Clinton Foundation. That came out a few days ago. Which
Rory, I'll send you a brand new $100 Federal Reserve note if that ever goes anywhere, because it won't.
Well, you're probably right, but I thought it was great to see. It was great to see the chairman of this Senate subcommittee issuing on the spot, telling the man from the representative from the FBI, "You have been served." He asked him point blank, "Can you accept documents for the FBI?" "Yes," was the response. And he's filling out a subpoena at his desk right there in this hearing. He fills it out, he signs it, and he says, "Consider yourself served," and hands him the document, hands him the subpoena. So, I mean, whether or not anything will come from it,
that was showmanship. That's not going to go anywhere.
Well, made me feel good.
Right, and that's why they did it.
So, but I don't know. I don't know, Dave. I think that the natives are getting restless. The citizens are up to their eyebrows with this whole Clinton thing, and I don't know.
I think that's right, but what are they going to do about it? I mean, I talk to people who are going to vote for Trump because it's a vote against Hillary, and I talk to people who know Hillary's dirty, but they're going to vote for her because it's a vote against Trump and they don't want Trump. And I can understand that position. I don't want Trump in there any more than I want Hillary in there. But what does it say about our system that we've been given a choice such that you're not voting for the candidate because it represents your values and your beliefs and where you'd like to see this country go in the future? You're voting for that candidate as a vote against the other candidate. I mean, that's just absurd. That the system's been turned inside out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, so why even vote? Well, I'm not giving up my vote. Well, your vote is useless. Your vote is meaningless. It doesn't matter who gets in the Oval Office. You voted for Obama last time. Did he do the things you thought he was going to do? No.
Did he do anything?
Right. Your vote doesn't matter. Send some money to Goldman. If you want to vote for Hillary, send money to Goldman Sachs and let them give that money to Hillary in your name.
There you go.
Maybe you can write letters to Goldman Sachs and give them some of your ideas, and maybe they'll pass them on. I doubt it, but it's not a democracy. Your vote doesn't matter. Your vote is useless. The system has to be overthrown. I coined a new term that I think applies. It's a moneyocracy. It's not a democracy.
Moneyocracy.
A moneyocracy. And I thought of that after that Zero Hedge post with the leaked emails that showed all these guys making hundreds of thousands of dollars donations to the DNC. And very shortly thereafter, they were appointed to ambassadorships to other countries,
yep,
or they were appointed to important administration and cabinet positions. and then I guess, the DNC came out, or maybe someone in the Obama administration, well, yeah, we have to admit it. It does help if you donate to the cause, if you want to get an appointment. That's a moneyocracy. It's not a democracy. You vote with your checking account.
Well, and this goes back to what I've asked in the past. What does the world see when they look and they see these things going on in this country? What do the citizens see of China or India or Brazil or any of the European nation states? What do they see? Do they see the same clown show that you and I see, or do they see the illusion and the mirage that they're given? I mean, it's I would have to think that if they are looking at the mirage, it's they're seeing it through a different filter than the typical American citizen sees it through, and I hope so anyway. But it blows my mind that all of these acts of criminality that you and I have just been discussing for the past 15 minutes, these are all seen on the global stage. Every one of them. It's not some of them, all of them. Every single thing that we've talked about today is viewed through some media outlet all around the world. I'm sick and tired of that reflection at my house. I really am. I am up to my eyebrows with the way that these people do not represent me. Their acts of criminality are just in broad daylight, and nobody does anything, and nobody says anything.
Well, it gets down to, what are you going to do? You going to pull your sawed-off shotgun out and walk down to the state capitol and demand change? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how a group of citizens gets together and foments change. I mean, there has to be a revolution, but I don't see that happening. I think most people are just too passive. And we saw that in Nazi Germany with the citizens there. They knew what was going on, and it was don't ask, don't tell.
Pretty much.
Right. But if you see something suspicious and you think your neighbor's doing something bad, tell on them. So, right. And that's what happens. But I mean, if you're in Europe and you see the stuff going on over here and you think poorly about us, don't judge us before you start examining yourself, because the people running these European countries are paid suitcases full of $100 bills in order to do what the U.S. wants them to do. That's why Europe is so complicit with the U.S.
Well, but
and I can't speak to China and Russia because I'm sure there's plenty of corruption that goes on in those countries. But they sure seem to be a lot cleaner than this country is. I mean, this country is. I mean, I remember sitting in high school history class studying banana republics. The Central American and South American banana republics. Well, then, as it turns out, the more I understand, it was the U.S. who imposed that situation on. That's Diary of an Economic Hitman.
Yep.
And we used to laugh at this idea of a banana republic. A corrupt leader running the country, taking payoffs for policy influence and policy implementation. Well, that's where the United States is. It's the biggest banana republic ever in history.
And getting worse.
Right.
And
I would love to use that as our title, but I'm not sure YouTube might delete the video if we use that as our title. Because now YouTube's editing, they're basically censoring videos. I mean, we make fun of China for censoring their internet. Well, how's that any different than what YouTube's doing?
Exactly. There's no difference. And speaking of which, what do you think, Dave? Should we turn the shadow of truth and start doing the Ruck report, the RUCK, the rainbows, unicorns, and cute kittens report?
I think it would pass the YouTube censors.
That would pass on the YouTube censorship. Just start labeling them the Ruck report number 1, Ruck report number 2.
That's funny.
Oh, but the thing is, we're laughing about it, but it's really a sad
it's very sad
situation where we actually have to verbalize something like that, where we actually have to contemplate how to get around the censorship that's being imposed on what should be a very free and open format. Period. I mean, this is still the United States, but is it the United States?
It's Orwell's playbook playing out right in front of us.
Right in front of us.
I remember
Right
reading Animal Farm in 1984 in high school and thinking, nah, that'll never happen in this country. Well, fast forward 35 years later, that's how old I am. And here we are. We're living Orwell's playbook.
We are. And I'm glad you said Animal Farm, because that is exactly what's happening. We have the totalitarianism that is 1984, and then we have the oligarch system that is Animal Farm. Period. I mean,
Right.
That's
right.
exactly what it is.
That's right.
Ridiculous. But
so speaking of propaganda and everything, just real quickly here, Apple rolled out their latest and greatest iPhone. I guess it's called iPhone 7. And there was a big announcement earlier this week that they were sold out orders. They were taking orders now, sold out, blah, blah, blah. And the stock went crazy. It ran up 10 points in 2 days.
Wow.
And it turns out, I don't know if you saw that post on Zero Hedge, they showed video footage all over New York City of cell phone stores. They go, here's the lines, and there's no lines in front of these stores. People are just kind of milling about as usual, as happens in New York City, or walking by. There's no one going into the stores. And I just got an email from a buddy of mine, and the list price on the Apple 7 is $699. Apple's already running specials. They're emailing existing iPhone users and saying, if you turn in your existing iPhone, you can have the iPhone 7 for $249.
Wow.
That doesn't exactly sound like an imbalance of supply and demand. It sounds like there's way more supply than there is demand.
That's what I'm hearing. And I find it interesting that there's been nonstop Samsung phones are blowing up. Blow up your car. Here's an image of a car blowing up. Here's an image of another car blowing up because of a Samsung phone. Those have been running endlessly throughout the past probably 5 or 6 days, if not more. I mean,
I've got a Samsung phone that cost me $200 when it came out. I think you can get the latest version for about $135, and I bought this, I don't know, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was already, a slightly older model. And
it's a phone. That's all that it is. It's a phone. It's not my television. It's not my window to the world. It's not my internet. It's not any of that. It's a phone.
Right, but for a lot of people, their Android, their fancy Android, or their iPhone, it's also their computer. So
yes.
But this does all the same things. Those fancy Androids, you can get it for $135.
Yep. Go get you a new phone, folks, and pump up the economy. Because Warren Buffett needs another 2 million accounts to commit fraud with. Oh, my God. Well, I guess that's as good a spot as any to wrap it up, don't you think, Dave?
I would agree. Time to get the weekend started. I got to start handicapping my football picks.
Okay, well.
It's that time of year.
It is that time of year. Well, all right. Well, you and have a wonderful weekend, and I guess we'll pick it up on Monday and see where we stand.
Sounds good to me.
All right, buddy.